The next point, we should ensure whatever we see is clear.
That means work is being done. We can see that it is in opposite direction.
Good day, learners. You are welcome to another segment of the Kaduna State Ministry of Education radio, television, e-learning program. The subject is mathematics, and the topic of discussion is variation. Subtopic, inverse or indirect variation. Learners should remember, in the first class, in our last lesson, we have discussed direct variation. And today, we are going to see inverse or indirect variation. Under indirect variation, we said if two quantities are so related such that the increase in one leads to the decrease of the other, or vice versa, then the first is said to vary inversely as the second. For example, the number of days required to build a house varies inversely to the number of workers. As the number of workers increase, the number of days required to build the house will decrease. Also, if a car traveling at a given speed tends to increase such speeds, then the less time it will take the car to cover a given distance. Therefore, in inverse variation, the product of the two variables, that is, quantities, will result in a constant. For instance, if y varies inversely as x, then it is written mathematically as y is proportional to 1 over x. Initially, I said the product of the two variables, here our variables is x and y, the product will result to a constant k. Therefore, the product of x and y is equal to k. Or, making y to be the subject of the formula, this equation can be expressed as y equals to k over x, where k is a constant. Let's see the first example, which is example 1. If m varies inversely as r, and r equals to 6, when m equals to 5, find A, the relationship between m and r. B, find m when r equals to 10. Solution A. M varies inversely as r. Therefore, this can be written as m is proportional to 1 over r. That is the proportionality sign. And from the initial stage, we said the products of the variables. Here, our variables is m and r. The product will result to a constant. That is the reason why we have mr equals to k, where k is the constant, making m the subject of the relation, or m the subject of the formula. Then we have m equals to k over r. Now we must find the value of the constant, which is k. Upon substitution, the value of m from the question is given as 5 and r is 6. Now upon substitution, we substitute 5 for m and 6 for r. Then we have k equals to 5 times 6, and 5 times 6 equals to 30. Now the value of the constant is 30. Then to find the relationship between m and r, we substitute the value of the constant, which is 30, into the equation m equals to k over r. Therefore, upon substitution, we have m equals to 30 over r. Now, m equals to 30 over r is the relationship between the two variables, that is m and r. Then B part of the questions, B, when r equals to 10, using the equation m equals to k over r, remember k is the constant. So substituting the value of the constant, which is 30, and value of r, which is 10, into this equation, m equals to k over r, then we have m equals to 30 over 10. 30 divided by 10, we have 3. Therefore, m equals to 3, which is the value of m when r equals to 10. Example 2, if r varies inversely as the square of h and r equals to 6 when h equals to 4, find a, r in terms of h, b, h when r equal to 8, and c, r when h equal to 9. Solution: A, the question says r varies inversely as the square of h. This statement can be written as r is proportional to 1 over h squared. And I said earlier, the product of the two variables, here the variables is r and h. The product of r and h will result to a constant, which is k. Therefore, rh squared equals to k, where k is a constant. Or, making r to be the subject of the formula, this equation can be expressed as r equal to k over h squared. Now to find the value of the constant, which is k, we substitute the value of r, which is 6, and the value of h, which is 4, into the given equation. Therefore, k equals to 6, open bracket, h, bracket close, then raised to a power of 2, because h is squared, and the value of h is 4. That is the reason why 4 has a square. Upon simple simplification, we have k equals to 6 times 16. 4 squared is 4 times 4, and 4 times 4 is the same thing as 16. Therefore, 6 times 16 is the same thing as 96. Then the value of k, which is the constant, is 96. Now to find the relationship between the variable, that is between h and r, or between r and h, then we substitute the value of the constant, which is 96, into the equation r equals to k over h squared. Then substituting 96 for k, we have r equal to 96 over h squared. Now r equals to 96 over h squared is the expression, or is the relationship between r and h, or is the expression of r in terms of h. Then b is to find h when r equals to 8. Now when r equals to h, From the previous equation, we can easily make h to be the subject of the formula. Then we have h squared equals to k over r. Substituting the value of k, which is 96, and the value of r, which is 8, in the given equation, then we have h squared equals to 96 over 8. 96 divided by 8 is 12. Then h squared equals to 12. Learners should take note. The question says find h, not h squared. Now you have 1 or 2 steps ahead. You must find a means that you find h only, not h squared. The easiest way is to take the square root of both sides. Looking h from the equation, h has a square. When you take the square root of both sides, the square, you have h squared with square root, then plus or minus. The reason why we introduce plus or minus, because initially the question has no square root. Now we are introducing square root, then you must include plus or minus. Then we have plus or minus root 12. Squared will cancel square root, that is from the left-hand side, and we'll be left with h only. Then square root of 12 is plus or minus 3.46, which is the value of h when r equals to 8. Then the c part, we should find r when h equals to 9. The same procedure, the same steps. From the initial equation, you only make r to be the subject of the formula. Making r the subject of the formula, you have r equals to k over h squared. So when you substitute the value of k, which is 96, and the value of h, which is 9, then the new equation will be r equals to 96 over 9 squared. 9 squared is 81. That is 9 times 9, which is 81. Then we have r equals to 96 over 81. And this can be further simplified to 32 over 27, or one whole number, 5 over 27. However, it can be expressed in decimals as 1.185. Then let's see another part of inverse variation, which is the product rule for inverse variation. And it says if x1, y1 and x2, y2 are the solution of an inverse variation, then x1, y1 equals to k, which is a constant. That is the product of x1 and y1 will result to a constant. Likewise, y2, x2, y2 will also result to another constant, k. When we substitute k for x1, y1, then our new equation will be x1, y1 equals to x2, y2. And this equation can also be expressed as x1 over x2 or y1 over y2. Then the equation x1, y1 equals to x2, y2 is called the product rule for inverse variation. Let's see example under it. The example says, in a construction company, 10 men are required to build a bridge in 30 days. How many days it will take 20 men to build the same bridge? Let me take the question again. In a construction company, 10 men are required to build a bridge in 30 days. How many days it will take 20 men to build the same bridge? Let's see the solution. The solution says let x be the number of men, and y be the number of days to build the bridge. Let x be the number of men and y be the number of days to build the bridge. So from the question, x1 is 10, that is 10 men, x2 20, that is 20 men, and y1 is 30 days, then y2 is unknown. We don't know y2 is what we are going to calculate, that is number of days. By the product rule of inverse variation, that is x1 y1 equals to x2 y2. When we substitute 10 for x1, 30 for y1, then 20 for x2, we have 10 times 30 equals to 20 times y2. Remember, y2 is unknown, is what we are going to find. Then 10 times 30 is 300. And 20 times y2, we have 20 y2. So the equation will be 300 equals to 20 y2. Dividing both sides by the coefficient of y2, which is 20. 20 is the coefficient of y2. When we divide both sides by 20, then we have 300 over 20 equals to 20 y2 over 20. Dividing both sides, from the right-hand side, 20 y2 over 20. 20 at the denominator will cancel 20 at the numerator, and we'll be left with y2 only. 300 divided by 20 is 15. So therefore, the value of y2 is 15. That is, 15 days is required to build same bridge. Summary of what we have discussed. We are discussing inverse or indirect variation. These two names are used interchangeably. You can either call it inverse variation or indirect variation, as the name implies. And we said if two quantities are so related such that the increase in one leads to the decrease in the other, then this is simply refers to as inverse variation. Inverse variation is unlike direct variation. In direct variation, the variables increase or decrease at the same time. But in inverse variation, when one increase, the other one decrease, or vice versa. Then, however, we have tried to solve 3 examples based on inverse variation. Learners should take note, all these questions are WAEC-related questions. You should be very careful. Variation is simple and straightforward. It depends on how you take it, but it is straightforward. See the first example. If m varies inversely, from the word inversely, that implies or tells you that it is inverse variation. If it is direct variation, the question says, if m varies directly. Direct is direct variation. Inverse means inverse variation. So if m varies inversely as r, and r equals to 6 when m equals to 5. Find A, the relationship between m and r. Take note of this question A. the relationship between M and R, express M in terms of R, or find the formula connecting M and R. These three statements are used interchangeably, so they remain the same. The relationship between M and R. Express M in terms of R. Find the formula connecting M and R, or the law connecting M and R. Remain the same. So therefore, going by example 2, if R varies inversely as the square, take note, as the square of H, meaning H has a square. If the question says as the square root, square and square root is not the same, are not the same. So if it is square root, you use square root. If it is square, you use square. And sometimes the question can change to as the cube of H. As the cube of H. Cube of H means H raised to a power of 3. Square means H raised to a power of 2. So if R varies as the square of H and R equals to 6 when H equals to 4, find R in terms of H. In the first example, it says the relationship between. Now R in terms of H. B, find H when R equals to 8. C, R when H equals to 9. You take note, you must find the value of a constant whenever you are dealing with variation. You must calculate the value of the constant. And take note, the constant must not necessarily be K. You can use any other alphabet, but you should state, assuming you use M, then you now tell the examiner that where M is constant. So K must not necessarily always be the constant. You can use any other alphabet apart from those that are used in the questions. So for example, in this question, R and H are used, so I can decide to use Z as constant, but I must state where Z is constant. Then we have seen the product rule for inverse variation, where we said, in general, the product rule or the formula is x1, y1 equals to x2, y2. That is the general rule or the general formula for product of inverse variation. Then we have also solved a problem under the product rule for inverse variation, which I believe you can be able to do that. To end the class, here is an assignment for the learners. The questions goes like this. The time T required to empty a tank varies inversely as the rate of pumping. If a pump can empty a tank in 150 minutes at the rate of 400 gallons per minute, how long will it take to empty a tank at the rate of 500 gallons per minute? The question again. The time T required to empty a tank varies inversely as the rate of pumping. If a pump can empty a tank in 150 minutes at the rate of 400 gallons per minute, how long will it take to empty a tank at the rate of 500 gallons per minute? Now, before my number, I would like to give reference materials. First, New Concept Mathematics, Book 1. 2, Comprehensive Mathematics. 3, Man Mathematics, Book 2. Man means Mathematical Association of Nigeria. Man Mathematics, Book 2. I remain Sadiq Alhatu Jae. For any question, comment, suggestion, you can contact me via the following numbers: 080-6226-4336. The number again, 080-6226-4336. Stay home, stay safe, keep learning.